Happy Sunday. Today's the day we dig into literature from a long time ago, and we remember that men are men and women are women, that witches exist. And I think you guys already know that. You didn't need to read Grimm Brothers fairy tales to know that witches exist, did you? Not in this day and age. Yeah. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to Far From Eden. The pepperonis are in place for the real star of the show. Oops! She jumps up there all the time when you guys aren't watching, I swear. And she has steps right behind my chair. So, this is all acting, is what it is. Okay, today's fairy tale that we're getting into is called Dr. Knowitall. I'm not going to make any comments about what I think about doctors in real life, but see what the Grimm brothers discovered, because they didn't write these tales. They gathered these tales from around what is now Germany. It was a bunch of different kingdoms and countries, I think, back then when they were gathering these stories. But even so, there was a culture. And just like today, it was kind of under attack. Probably for very same reasons. That, let's just say, probably a lot of out-of-towners with different customs. And they did not want the degradation of their culture. And neither do I, and most of you, or all of you, want that today. So it's time we bring this back. And interestingly, and I mentioned this last week, Jordan Peterson, Carl Benjamin Show, Podcast of the Lotus Eaters, and I can't even think of the third one. There's a third. Oh, I am so sorry. Honey Badger Radio have all looked into fairy tales very recently and basically are saying the same thing that we say about them. So, Dr. Knowitall. Once upon a time, there was a poor farmer named Crab who drove a cord of wood into town with his 2 oxen and sold the wood to a doctor for 2 gold coins. When the farmer went inside to get his money, the doctor was just about to sit down to dinner, and the farmer admitted the fine food and drink. Admired. I even have my glasses on, I'm so sorry. And the farmer admired the fine food and drink at the doctor's table. His heart yearned for something like that, and he thought how nice it would be if he were a doctor. He lingered there a while and finally asked if it were possible for someone like him to become a doctor. Right away, I'm just going to point out that he was admiring the food. He was admiring that, which would mean, riches. And then he thought, well, I want to be a doctor. I don't know if that's I don't know that that's the best reason to become a doctor. And in this day and age, so often that happens. People don't become doctors because they want to help people. Most people become doctors because of the status and money and all that. And you end up with, well, what we have. And I, for one, have had a lot of experience with doctors because of the MS. I've had so many, and I'm not impressed. So he asked him if he could become a doctor. Of course, said the doctor. There's not much to it. First, buy yourself an ABC book, the kind with the picture of a rooster in it. Second, you must get cash for your wagon and 2 oxen and purchase some clothes. Purchase some clothes and other things that doctors tend to need. Third, you must have a sign painted with the words, I am Dr. Knowitall, and nail it above your front door. The farmer did everything he was told, and when he had doctored For some time, but not very long, a rich and mighty nobleman was robbed of some money, and he heard about Dr. Knowitall, who was living in such and such a village and would probably know what had become of the money. So the nobleman had his carriage prepared, drove out to the village, and inquired at the farmer's house whether he was Dr. Knowitall. Yes, that was yes, that was he, the farmer responded. Then the nobleman requested that he return with him and help him get back his stolen money. The farmer agreed, but added that Greta, his wife, had to come along too. The nobleman gave his approval, offered them both a seat in his carriage, and they drove off together. When they came to the nobleman's mansion, the table was already set, and Dr. Knowitall was to eat with the lord, but he wanted his wife Greta to eat with them too. So they all sat down together at the table. Now, when the first servant arrived with a dish of delicious food, the farmer nudged his wife and said, "Greta, that was the first." And he meant that that was the man with the first course. But the servant thought he meant, "That's the first thief." And since he really was the thief, he got scared and went out to tell his accomplices. "The doctor knows everything. There's trouble ahead. He said I was the first." The second servant didn't even want to go in, but he had no choice. When he entered with his dish, the farmer nudged his wife and said, "Greta, that's the second." The servant too got scared and hurried out. The third fared no better. Again, the farmer said, "Greta, that's the third." The fourth had to carry in a covered dish, and the nobleman asked the doctor to demonstrate his skill. And guess what lay under the cover? Crabs were being served, and when the farmer looked at the covered dish, he had no idea what to say. Finally, he blurted out, "Poor me, poor crab." Well, he's getting really lucky, isn't he? I don't know where this one's going, but there's going to be a lesson. When the nobleman heard that, he exclaimed, "There, he knows. I'm sure he must also know who has the money." The servant was frightened to death and winked at the doctor to step outside for a moment. When he got outside, all four servants confessed to him that they had stolen the money. They proposed that he take charge of it and offered a large sum in addition if he would not expose them. Otherwise, they would soon be dangling from the gallows. When they led him to the place where they had hidden the money, the doctor was satisfied, went back inside, sat down at the table, and said, "Sir, now I intend to look in my book to see where the money's been hidden." In the meantime, the fifth servant had crawled into the stove to see if he could hear what else the doctor knew. As the doctor sat there at the table, he opened his ABC book and turned the pages back and forth, looking for the rooster. Since he couldn't find it right away, he said, "I know you're there. I'm bound to find you." This one's a mushroom trip, I think. At least for me, I don't know. You guys tell me what you think so far. The servant in the stove thought that the doctor was talking about him, and he jumped out of the stove in fright and said, "That man knows everything." Then Dr. Knowitall showed the nobleman where the money was, but he didn't reveal who had stolen it. As a reward, he received money from both sides and became a famous man. All right, what is it? Take risks? Because in the other fairy tales, they have taught that men should step outside themselves and take risks, and that doing so would pay off. I don't see anywhere where this man was dishonest. He had very good fortune. He took a risk. He had very good fortune. Notice, I was waiting for Greta to step out of line. and she didn't. So that one was fairly simple. Some of these stories are directed directly at men, or directed at men, you know. And I think you guys would agree that, and a lot of them raised by single mothers and by matriarchal gynocentric households, kind of don't come out taking risks and being brave. And it's very hard to do in a society that disenfranchises you and stuff. So I don't know, maybe back then in the Germanic region, men were starting to back off, maybe they were listening to their women too much. But Greta did not stand in his way, so that's good. All right, the next one is called The Frog Prince. Sounds a little familiar. I don't know if we read it when we were reading that book that was published in like the 1930s, but fairly soon we realized that that book was way too modern. It had taken out so much of the religious tones and just outright mentioning God. It was not doing that. Isn't that funny? You know, it wasn't Disney that took everything woke. Publishing companies and the powers that be started doing it way before you thought they were, which is why people like Jordan Peterson, Honey Badger Radio, and Podcast of the Lotus Eaters are going back in time too, to see what people knew and how our society was structured. I'm glad Jordan Peterson is reading back here. Maybe he'll actually start to believe in God. The Frog Prince. So even if we've read it before, I'm sure there will be things that were missed. Ro Hossel pointed out, he's the guy in the chat that will be like, yeah, we've read it before and this is what is different. And he has a different translation too. So, and he speaks German, so he definitely has an advantage. That's why I'm calling him out all the time. I appreciate that. The Frog Prince. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 daughters, and in his courtyard there was a well with beautiful clear water. On a hot summer's day, the eldest daughter went down to the well and scooped out a glass full of water. However, when she looked at it and held it up to the sun, she saw that the water was murky. She found this very unusual and wanted to scoop out another glass, when a frog stirred in the water, stuck his head up high, and finally jumped on the edge of the well, where he spoke. If you'll be my sweetheart, my dear, I'll give you water clearer than clear. Oh, who'd ever want to be a nasty frog's sweetheart? She cried out and then ran away. Then she told her sisters that there was an odd frog down at the well that made the water murky. The second sister became curious, and so she went down to the well and scooped a glass of water for herself. But it was just as murky as her sister's glass, so that she wasn't able to drink it. Once again, however, the frog was on the edge of the well and said, if you'll be my sweetheart, my dear, I'll give you water clearer than clear. Do you think that would suit me? The princess replied and ran away. Finally, the third sister went, and things were no better. But when the frog spoke, if you'll be my sweetheart, my dear, I'll give you water clearer than clear. She replied, yes, why not? I'll be your sweetheart. Get me some clean water. Okay, already bossing. I'm easily triggered by that by now. Looking for the witches. However, she thought, that won't do any harm. I can speak to him just as I please. A dumb frog can never become my sweetheart. What did I say? The next sentence, nature. Her nature came out. She's a covert feminist. Okay. Sorry, I laughed at my own joke. Meanwhile, the frog had jumped back into the water And when she scooped up some water a second time, it was so clear that the sun nearly gleamed with joy in the glass. Then she drank and quenched her thirst, and also brought her sisters some of the water. "Why were you so simple minded and afraid of the frog?" she said to them. And afterward, the princess didn't think anything more about it and went happily to bed. However, after she had been lying there for a while and couldn't fall asleep, she suddenly heard some scratching on the door and then some singing. Open up, princess, youngest daughter. Don't you remember what you said when I sat on the well on the water's edge?" Oh, still goes. "You wanted to be my sweetheart, my dear, and I gave you water clearer than clear." "Oh, that's my sweetheart, the frog," the princess said. "And since I gave him my word, I'll open the door." So she got out of bed, opened the door a little, and then lay back down in the bed. The frog hopped after her and jumped on the bed, down by her feet, and remained there. When the night was over and morning dawned, the frog sprang off the bed and went out through the door. The next evening, when the princess was once again lying in bed, there was some scratching and singing at the door once more. The princess opened the door, and the frog lay in the bed at her feet until it turned day. On the third evening, the frog came, just like he had done the previous evenings. "This is the last time that I'll open the door to you," the princess said to him. "In the future, there will be no more of this." Then the frog jumped and crawled under her pillow, and the princess fell asleep. When she woke up the next morning, she thought the frog would hop off again. Instead, she saw a handsome young prince standing before her, and he told her that he had been the bewitched frog and that she had saved him because she had promised to be his sweetheart. Then the two of them went to the king, who gave them his blessing, and a wedding was held. Meanwhile, the two other sisters were angry and they were angry with themselves because they had not taken the frog to be their sweetheart. Yeah, because they were too good for him. Now, the third sister was also too good for him, but she wasn't so good for him that she wouldn't, you know, give it some thought. And then and she made the promise. So even though she was like, "I can talk to him whoever I want, blah, blah, blah," she still kept her word and let him come and hang out in the bedroom. I know, please don't say anything gross, you guys. Anyway, but I don't know if they meant to teach this lesson or not. But when he was the frog, she was too good for him. That was the last time she wasn't gonna keep her word anymore. She even said, what changed her mind? Oh, it's a handsome prince. So that's okay then. Now I can keep my word. Now I will definitely be your sweetheart for real. Before, I was doing it to get something and just kind of keeping my word. But now that you're a handsome prince, now you're handsome and you've got money, now it's all good. And I think that tells the lesson. I don't know if they would have taught that back then, or this is just accidentally revealing some of our nature. But it's absolutely true. She only agreed to the frog because she wanted something. She did keep her word, and that was rewarded. But she wasn't going to keep her word for very long. She did it out of obligation. We have seen other female characters in these fairy tales that have kept their word no matter what, with a pure heart. This princess did not have a pure and pious heart. She was absolutely transactional. From the frog to the prince, it's no difference. She was doing something to get something. And it's funny because the sisters were jealous because they wish they had done that. They wish they had thought of it. I think that's more of a lesson for the men than it is for the women, unless I was teaching it and then I would point it out to the little girls and say, do you think that's okay? Do you think it's okay to promise something like that you don't want to really do because you think badly of the person and you're not actually going to keep your word? No, it's not. So it's not okay to pretend to like people to get something in return. That's not what it's about. That's what I would teach the little girls. And you can tell that we don't read these fairy tales to little girls and little boys anymore, because if we did, they would grow up learning these values. Now, I think we have time for one more. I'm going to find one that isn't too long to fit into our show today. Okay, we're going to skip ahead a little bit because this one is fairly short and I like to give you guys full show. I know Sundays are a lot of your all's favorite. This one's called The Sweet Porridge. Once upon a time, there was a poor but pious girl who lived alone with her mother. When they had nothing left to eat, the girl went out into the forest, where she met an old woman who already knew about her troubles and gave her a small pot. She instructed the girl to say to it, "Little pot, cook," for it would then make a good, sweet millet porridge. And the girl was to say, "Little pot, stop," to make it stop cooking. The girl brought the pot home to her mother and put an end to their poverty and hunger. From then on, they ate sweet porridge as often as they liked. One day, when the girl had gone out, the mother said, "Little pot, cook," and it began cooking. After she had eaten her fill, she wanted the pot to stop, but she had forgotten the right words. So the pot continued to cook, and the porridge ran over the rim and proceeded to fill the kitchen and the whole house, then the next house, and the street, as if it wanted to feed the entire world. The situation was desperate, and nobody knew what to do. Finally, when only one house was left standing, without any porridge in it, the girl returned home and merely said, "Little pot, stop." It stopped cooking, and whoever sought to go back into the town had to eat his way through. What? But we have read a lot, so when you're getting to the end, you get to the tales that are like, I don't know if you had the whole story, but this girl was pious. She was pious. And maybe that's why they had, they did not want, but to have to eat your way into the town. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think about that one. All right. That was quick. So I noticed there was another short one, and I have a feeling we're going to continue the mushroom trip, and we might as well. We have a good time together. Okay. Tales about toads. If people are tuning into Sunday for the first time, they're like, what is going on? I thought she was a men's rights advocate. Yeah, I am. And if we'd read fairy tales, I wouldn't have to be. Tales about toads. A child sat on the ground in front of the house door and had a little bowl with milk and bread nearby and ate. A toad came crawling and dipped its little head into the bowl and ate with the boy. The next day it came again and did this every day for some time. The child took delight in this, and when he saw, however, that the toad would only drink the milk and leave the bread lying there, the child took his little spoon, hit the toad a little on its head and said, "You thing, you, eat the bread too." In the meantime, The boy had become handsome and big, and his mother stood right behind him and saw the toad. Then she ran over to them and, and beat the toad till it was no more. From that time on, the child became emaciated and finally died. Dang woman, cruelty, just utter cruelty. She did not have to do that to the toad. The boy befriended the toad. He shared with the toad. He even wanted the toad to eat the bread too, because I guess he thought that's not good enough for you. You have to eat both, right? What in the world? And she just comes out and just does that, just utter cruelty for no reason. Well, that's weird because women aren't like that. When you ask yourself, which one of us has that cruelty streak? I know it's us. I know it's us. Our freedoms that we have now, our healthcare rights, demonstrate that. There is nothing more evil than those healthcare rights that women fight for. Just kill that toad for no reason. No reason, but just to be mean. Just to be mean. Think about it. The boy shared his food. He was good. And he was handsome and strong. And then when he, could no longer do that, he was no more. The pious girl in the last story, little pot cook, it's good to be good. Doesn't mean that good things are always going to happen to you. Fairy tales teach us that time and time again. But it does mean that if you follow Christian ethics and you know the truth, in the end, things are going to be good. This life here is not all there is. You guys need to remember that. I have to remind myself that when I am just in the depths of despair, that this isn't all there is. Stay the course. Stay the course. I'm mad at that woman. I'm just like mad at that mother that came along. Okay, this has 3 different versions, I guess. So number 2, a little orphan girl was sitting on the city wall and spinning when she saw a toad come toward her. So she spread out a blue silk neckerchief next to her that toads like to walk on very much. As soon as the toad caught sight of the kerchief, it turned back, but it soon returned carrying a tiny golden crown. It laid the crown on the kerchief and went away again. The girl picked up the crown in her hands. It glittered and was made out of delicate spun gold. The toad soon came back a second time, but when it didn't see the crown anymore, it crawled to the wall and began hitting its head against the wall out of grief. The toad continued doing this until its strength gave out, and it finally lay there. If the little girl had left the crown lying on the kerchief, the toad would probably have brought even more of its treasures out of the hole. This one just came right out and said it. Now, I'm just going to point out, little boy, little girl. She just took it. He didn't give it to her. He just took it. I mean, he put it there and she just took it. And he died from grief. And if she hadn't done that, things would have turned out better. Okay, number 3. Hoo, 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 called the toad. Come out, said the child. The toad came out, and the child asked about his little sister. Have you seen Little Red Stocking by any chance? No, the toad said. I haven't seen her either. How about you? Ooh, ooh, ooh. All right. We're in the mushrooms. That was it on that one. I think that one's probably a little incomplete, but good for a laugh, right? Oh gosh, you guys. I'm trying to get Lola to get up there again, but she's lost her confidence, I think. And maybe she's tired like I am. Today, we're both like, by Sunday. Oh, thank you guys for joining me today. I love Sundays with you. I love every day with you, but Sundays are special. I never know what to put on the thumbnail because I'm like, how do I explain to people that we're reading fairy tales and that it's really important and they should too? It's So I really need you guys to like the video because it helps send it out. Because then YouTube's like, oh, people like it. Let me show it to people. And then it's my job to make a thumbnail that kind of explains what we're doing, but also makes it sound important because it is. But it's hard for people to realize because people in this day and age, they see the symptoms of the degradation of our society and they can see that the West is falling and they might see some of the reasons why, out of towners and, uh, you know, feminism, but they don't know really how we got here. And we got here because we lost our culture. Some people are out there saying culture war. Tim Pool has a show on Friday called The Culture War. And it's important to get down to the bottom of it because then it's the only way you can actually fix it is to know how it broke. And it broke so long ago, people don't realize it. It broke. I mean, we have a book coming up from 1792. So if you think this is brand new, if you're like, oh, modern women or, third wave, fourth wave feminism or what have you, it's been going on for quite some time. We all think the French Revolution was, Les Miserables and wow, such a good thing. I was raised thinking that. And it's not the case. It's not the case. It's like the birth of communism. But anyway, it sounds like that has nothing to do with fairy tales, but it has everything to do with fairy tales because fairy tales teach right and wrong. And they teach that men are men and women are women and you can watch out for witches. It's a good thing to do. And I think that we today need to watch out for witches. And that's why men are going their own way. Because you can't tell who is one, right? That's one of the things about witches, like the witch in Snow White. She didn't look like a witch, and she tricked Snow White, did she? No. Because if they looked like witches, they'd never be able to cast a spell on you, because you'd know to watch out for them. And maybe that's why, one of the reasons why, we started changing these fairy tales. We started making them modern and taking out the things that matter. And that's what we're missing, the things that matter. Nowadays, a lot of the younger people don't even know what matters. Anyway, it's enough of my old lady rant on that, I guess. So, she got up there. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show. I was just about to wrap. Okay, well, there's not wrap, but wrap the show. There's Lola for you. She's 16, you guys. She was born around this time because I got her at the end of August. And she was a teeny tiny little puppy that was probably barely away from her mother. So sometime in the middle of July, end of July, she was born. 16 years old this year. Knock on wood, still doing well. That I shouldn't say that. That's superstitious. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you guys for loving Lola too. Thank you guys for supplying the pepperonis. We buy them by the case. So make sure you protect your peace. You feed your souls. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.